It's a work stream. Before I start introducing our speakers for the morning session, let me introduce you to Kay North, who will have quick words about the workplace evolutionaries. Please welcome Kay.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, let's see, there we go, the workplace evolutionaries. By show of hands, is anybody familiar? How many are members? Okay, a few. So the workplace evolutionaries is a community of practice within IFMA, and we focus on innovating the world, or innovating the workplace, and changing the world one workplace at a time. And you will see that there are 4 or 5 different sessions during the track, or the course of the past 2 days, next 2 days, that have the WE logo on it. So these are people that have been workplace evolutionary leaders, such as Kay and others, and we welcome you to get to know WE and get to know all about the different benefits that we have, and there'll be more information coming as well as some of the hubs. So I'd like to turn it back over to Jay.
Thank you. Well, our first session for the morning is with our speaker, Kay Sargent, who's here. With more than 30 years of experience, Kay is a recognized expert on workplace design and strategy issues. She has worked with several Fortune 500 companies to organize their world real estate portfolios and create innovative work environments. Kay is considered industry thought leaders on workplace. She was also rated the top rated presenter at the Trade Line 2015 Space Strategies Conference, and big, huge CV, but I will pass you the word immediately. So thank you.
Thank you. So the most important thing that you need to know about me is that I'm a mother of 5 children, so you can text all through my presentation. I'm not going to care. I get it every night at the dinner table. That you can absolutely challenge me, but if you're going to challenge me, you got to roll your eyes and you got to really make it good, right? Because I get teenagers challenging me all the time, so you got to be dramatic about it. Otherwise, I'm not going to notice. And I get to travel all over the world. My job at HOK is to work with corporate clients, and we're working with them right now in 44 different countries all over. And we are dealing with companies that have millions of square feet of real estate, and we often get to, oh, do I need the mic? I'm usually a soccer mom, so I usually don't need the mic, but I'll use the mic. So I get to work with companies all over the world who have millions of square feet of real estate, and one of the things they want to know, if you've got millions of square feet of real estate, is what's going to happen, what's coming. And so we really believe that there is a big shift coming, and you gotta love it when the keynote uses the term of your presentation in his thing, not that we coordinated that at all. But I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about what was, where we are, and where we see things going now, and what's happening in the world. And and I'm gonna cover a whole lot of topics really, really quickly, and a lot of these things, I think it's actually great that I'm going first, because a lot of these topics are gonna be dove into by some of the other speakers that are going to be following the next 2 days of this conference and this session, so excited about that. So I get asked this question all the time. What is the workplace of the future? How many of you guys want to know the answer to that question? I think most people want to know the answer to that question. I'm going to say this. I'm going to challenge this notion. I think this is the wrong question. We're designing space for people. Yet somehow we've forgotten that in the equation. We're so focused on everything else that we've forgotten that we are ultimately designing for people. So if you want to design the workplace of the future, don't you kind of have to know who the worker of the future is? Isn't that the most important thing? And so we really believe that we need to deeply understand what's coming, what's happening in the worker of the future. We have the Gen Zs that are coming in. We have people that are working longer and longer, so we now have 5 generations in the workplace. Everybody talks about the generations. In all honesty, introverts versus extroverts has more of a difference between whether you're a baby boomer or millennial. Life stages has more of an impact. We have cultural nuances now because we have a more blended society, and we are becoming a majority of minorities. So generations has gotten way too much focus, and we need to start focusing on all the other aspects, plus the fact that we do have more women coming into the workplace. And if you have boys and girls, you know that there's absolutely a difference. And neither one is better than the other, but they absolutely manage differently. So understanding the worker of the future is really what we should be focusing on and trying to do. Another big shift is in our world, everybody looks at space metrics, okay? And they want to know, how do we evaluate things? But again, I've never had a CEO look at me and say, God, you know, the fact that Johnny is sitting in 140 square feet is really keeping me up at night. What's keeping them up at night is their ability to attract and retain, to innovate fast enough. And we're not measuring this. And so as a community, we have to collectively get together and start thinking about how do we measure the human metrics? Because 80% of a company's money is going to their people. Only 10% goes to their corporate real estate and 10% goes to their IT. And what do we spend all our time talking about? That 20%, right? If we do anything negatively to impact the ability of people to perform in space, we could actually cost a company more money than we save them by reducing their overall real estate. We have a huge impact, but we're not measuring that impact. And so we need to start thinking about what are the human-centric measurements and how do we do that and how do we assess that? Now, we've talked for a long time about environmental sustainability, and that's important, okay? But now we're starting to realize that when that wall is off-gassing, is killing me faster, or what I'm, sitting longer is killing me faster than what any wall is off-gassing. And so we need to refocus to the human sustainability elements of that. How do we get people up, active, and moving? Here's the reality. We have grossly over-convenienced everyone. We're so enamored with technology and the ability to make things easy for people that, quite frankly, we've gone too far. Do you guys have a trash can by every chair in your house? I hope not. Why do we have a trash can by every desk in the office? Are we really that lazy? Right? Like, we've designed spaces like people are potted plants. Yet we need to get away from that. We need to start thinking about how do we design spaces that get people up, active, and moving. Another big shift is from intelligence to emotional intelligence. Okay. Now you're going to challenge me on this one, I know. So I'm going to have you do a little exercise. I want you to think about who the best boss you ever had was and why. And don't look at anybody in the audience, by the way. I want you to think about the worst boss you ever had and why. I'm willing to bet that it had absolutely nothing to do with that person's intelligence, but everything to do about how they made you feel. If they empowered you, if they enabled you, if they made you feel like you were worth something or you were giving a big contributor to the company. Emotional intelligence is huge. And this is one of the few things that actually separates us from the machines. Because this is the one thing that they haven't conquered yet. And by the way, they're working on that, and they probably could actually have more empathy eventually than we do. But that is a huge factor that we're really focusing on today, is emotional intelligence. Because people with high levels of emotional intelligence tend to be higher performers, they tend to have more loyalty, they tend to bring their company more money. So emotional intelligence is huge. And one of the challenges I think that we're having right now is we're growing a generation fueled by technology that is actually one of the loneliest generations that we've ever had. Teen depression is on the rise. Most of their connections are very, very superficial, and they connect all the time, just not face-to-face often. And so their emotional intelligence is plummeting for a lot of the younger generations. And this is something that they're really concerned about, to the point that many companies, and one of the things you're going to start hearing, like the Simon Sinek's and all these guys talking about in the next 2 years, is get your phones out of your kids' hands. Because it literally is making them just shut down emotionally. And it's not a good thing. So we need to start thinking about how do we really do that. One of the other things is we've gone from human, not that we're going to go away, but there's so much focus today on machines and artificial intelligence. Now, everybody says, they've seen these reports about how robots are going to replace your jobs. And by the way, architects and designers and some of these folks, some of the things that we do are way down on the list. So that's good news for everybody here in this room today. But if you've got a company, and you're a big financial institution, you've got millions of square feet all over the world of financial analysts who are high up on that list of people who could be replaced by artificial intelligence. You're taking a hard look at your real estate right now and saying, what are we going to do with all this real estate when that happens? Well, we believe that it's a shift, okay? When robotics came into manufacturing, yes, manufacturing jobs went away. But the jobs in robotics went through the roof. So there's a shift, and you need to understand what is the new skill set that is needed, and start focusing on that and preparing people for that. We believe that high tech, has this advanced the whole time I've been talking? Has it been going along? Has it? Because I'm not even touching it and it's moving along. Let's see, what did I miss? Oh, there we go, okay. We believe that high tech is driving to high touch. So we need balance as people. Instinctively, we believe that we instinctively are craving certain things. So go out on this limb with me, if you will. The more high tech we go, the more organic we as people want to be, because our human instinct is fighting back. If you think about all the Star Trek and all the things that predicted futuristic societies, the environments are very cold and very sterile and very white and just very bleak. Anybody see the movie Passenger? The spaceship at the beginning was very, very bleak, and what they did to it at the end of the last scene, how totally different it was, right? That's what humans do to space. Okay, we are organic. We want natural things. We want to be around things. And so we don't believe that it's an accident that spaces are looking like this today. That now all of a sudden we have natural grains, woods, materials, and things that are coming in that are really, really focusing on high touch spaces, because we need that balance. We've gone from place to experience. You don't have to come to the office anymore. You don't. We are truly living for the first time in a world where we are very, very untethered and you can work anytime. And so the challenge that we all have is, how do you create a compelling enough space that people actually want to be there? Would people come to your office if they had to pay to be there? That's what they're doing in co-working. And so we have to think about, what is the experience that we're creating for people? We've gone from branding or wall tattoos, slapping the logo on a wall, to really now being much more about experiential design. About making space so you can interact with it, and then it's more lively. And then it really is a physical embodiment of what your company is and what your company believes in. Okay, so here's my prediction. They asked the last speaker, what would you change facility managers to be? I believe that as Internet of Things comes online and buildings can manage themselves more and more, the facilities manager's role is going to shift. Not to be the person that manages the building, but the community within the building. Your job is going to be creating a compelling enough space that people even want to come there in the first place, because there's nothing to manage if nobody's coming to your building. And so we really see this as space as a service. How do we embed that in, and how do we change that? And how do we start focusing on the people in the building, not so much just the building itself? And that's one place where artificial intelligence can really help alleviate. Let them do the stupid stuff that we don't want to do, figuring out when the toilet paper needs to be replaced. We want to go and spend time with the people and make sure that we're creating a compelling enough space that people even want to be there. We've gone from very isolated environments to very connected spaces. Okay, again, it's almost like this beehive mentality. People are coming to spaces to be with other people, which is really the reason that you're coming to a space in the first place. Then designing buildings like a stack of pancakes where the third and the fifth pancake have no idea what's going on. I mean, in most buildings you have no idea who's above you or below you at any given time and what they're doing. And so we're designing spaces like this that really connect people, where it's almost like this beehive of function. There's an energy in that. There's a vibe that is creating an amazing place that people want to be. We've gone from very siloed environments to what we call space fusion. Okay, so I'm going to dwell on this one for a minute. Sometimes the next big invention is right in front of your face. You're just overlooking it. For years in our industry, it's here's where you go to school, here's where you work, here's where you live, here's where you shop. When all of a sudden we're hacking buildings and we're making it so that one building is influencing the other, and maybe the bottom few floors are retail, and then you've got some corporate space, and then you've got some residential space. So we're hacking our buildings to create communities vertically within the buildings. But we're also now looking across the aisle to other sectors. This is a crick in London. They are literally, if cancer is going to be cured, it's probably going to be in this building. Yet the administrative people were not connected to the mission of the organization at all. And so what we did is we designed a space where these are the labs, and the administrative people are right across the hallway. At any given time, through that central atrium, you can look over and you can see people working in the labs. It instantly makes every single person in that building realize we're curing cancer. That's our mission. And they're connected to that mission. We believe that corporatality, corporate space and hospitality, have fused together. So people talk about residential furniture coming into the workplace. Newsflash, do not buy residential furniture and put it in a corporate space. It will break down within a year and everybody will be mad at you. It's hospitality furniture that you want to bring in, and that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to bring in that element of hospitality, so corporatality. We also believe that higher ed and retail are the next two things that are really going to start influencing workplace more and more as we bring in elements of that. We've already seen it. The Genius Bar at the Apple Store is now the tech bar in your workplace, right? So we're starting to bring those things in and fuse those spaces together. So it's looking across the aisle to what's happening in other sectors, bringing best practices of those in. Everybody in our healthcare group, when we got all excited about, well-being several years ago and we're talking about how we're going to do this, we've been doing this in the hospitality sector or the healthcare sector forever. Welcome to the party, right? And so the next big invention is out there. It's just in another sector, and we just need to think about how do we blend those things together and create amazing experiences. We've gone from very, very strict standards to more agile guidelines. People are understanding that there's so many nuances, regional nuances, cultural nuances, ethnic nuances from one group to another, that we really need, what we're really trying to do is create consistent experiences from one space to another. They don't all have to look exactly the same. They don't have to look, the exact same work desk, etc. Different countries have different standards. And so it's really about creating that consistent experience through agile guidelines. Another shift is going from owned and controlled to the sharing economy and how that impacts us. We've seen it with Uber, we've seen it with Airbnb, we're seeing with co-working. This is not going to stop. And we actually had a great conversation with Magnus and Emma last night at dinner about how we think this is going to change workplace going forward. And so stick around in this room and you can hear them talk a little bit about that after this presentation today. But we've really gone to how do we create spaces that aren't necessarily owned or controlled, but that people have access to. And it totally changes the way that we could be managing our corporate real estate. We've gone from designing by corporate real estate to really more design by disciplines. We're spending more and more time with the engineers who we're actually designing the space for, or the developers who we're designing the space for, or the people in the space, to really understand what is their needs and how are they functioning and how do we create the right spaces. It's designed by discipline today. And so we're starting to see the things like rise of memo spaces. Memo spaces are mobile environments or maker environments for mobile occupants. Highly agile environments for people that are really focused on speed to innovation. And so when we really get tied to what their purpose is and what their mission is, it totally changes the way that we're designing spaces today. We've gone from focusing on occupancy to utilization. Now, I'm going to throw out a caution flag here. I'm also going to date myself. I lived through the late 80s and the early 90s. Please, somebody else in the room, raise your hand and tell me you remember these days, when we could have QR codes. And everybody said, oh my God, this is amazing. We can put a QR code on everything and we can track it. And everybody did this, and they spent millions of dollars and so much time putting these little QR codes on everything so you could know where every chair was at any given time. And you had a whole staff of people that were tracking this, and all of a sudden you woke up one day and realized, I don't give a shit what the chair is. Who cares? Do you see QR codes on anything today? No. I'm going to wave a caution flag about what we're doing right now. Everybody is so enamored with sensors and collecting the data. The number one question to ask yourself is, why are you collecting it? What are you going to do with it? And what is the resistance and what are the workarounds your people are going to find to avoid it being accurate? I'm also going to say that we're collecting a lot of thin data, okay? Thin data, and anybody that's been a workplace strategist knows that you have to look at something multiple ways. If I ask you what you want, if I ask my kids what they want, they're going to tell me they want chocolate for dinner. But I know that that's not what they should have. You need to look at things multiple different ways. So when we go and we do workplace assessments, we look at it from user perspective, from time utilization studies, from on-site observations. Then we find the anomalies, and somewhere between all of that, we find the truth. These sensors are giving us a whole lot of information really quickly and are helping us jump to false conclusions. So I'll give you an example. In some of these, like in the co-working spaces, they've been assessing, well, nobody sat in these chairs, so these chairs are bad. So get rid of that chair because that's a horrible chair and never respect that chair again. But the bottom line might actually be, well, it just didn't have power. Or it was in a hotspot. Or it was in an area that there was a loud talker and nobody wanted to be there. So it wasn't the chair that was bad, but that's what the data would lead you to believe. So you have to look at the thick data, and we're not collecting thick data right now. We've also gone from universal to tailored, where people right now are really focused on what is it that you need, okay? We're living in a world where everybody is telling you what everybody else is doing. And everybody comes to me and says, well, what is Google doing, okay? Newsflash, you're probably not Google. And Google isn't even Google anymore. The most important thing is who are you? And understanding who you specifically are and tailoring a space to that. Because the workplace has evolved. We've gone from private offices to cubicles to open plan. And by the way, another pet peeve of mine, I cannot even tell you how many articles I have that say, God, you know, the open plan just doesn't really work well. Well, no duh, we figured that out a long time ago and we've moved way beyond that. We're asking the wrong questions, right? We've gone to activity-based working, and then co-working is a slice of that. We've gone to neighborhood-based choice environments, the memo spaces we're starting to see emerge, and immersive environments. I hope that we get to immersive environments. And I can't explain to you what immersive environments are, because quite frankly, for every company, it's different. That's the day that we get to a point that you don't care what your competition is doing, you care what your people need. And you focus an environment specifically around them and you do what's right for them. And that's the day, if you look at the bottom here, where we've got the utilizations per person, right? HX, human factor. I don't care how much square footage. What I want to know is, are the people productive in the space and are they being able to function well? I don't care if it's 140 square feet per person or 180 square feet per person. That's when we can start looking at the space metrics and really decide what's functioning well. Because today, we're no longer just designing workplaces. We're really designing the entire experience. We've gone from workplace to work how. How do you want to work? When do you want to work? Where do you want to work? What do you want that work experience to be like? And the key is the ability to kind of tie all of that together, to take all the different needs, to deeply understand what your people need and what is the right thing for them, and create an enriching environment that people actually want to come to, and they're excited about being in. That's the kind of workspaces we want to create. So with that, I'm done. Did I do it? Woo! I had a bet going over here that I could do a little speed talking. And I wanted to leave time for questions. So any thoughts, any questions that anybody has, any challenges?